Edmond is a Sylvan who left his village to travel and learn about the world, but after 2 years of traveling, he was captured by the Syndicate and experimented on in their multiverse convergence project. After being imprisoned for over a month, he's finally freed when Aldred locates and attacks the compound he's being held in. Edmond's form is unstable though, and he decides to seek help at the Halidom that he visited on his travels, as he met several people there who may be able to diagnose his condition. Upon arriving at the Halidom though, despite being let in, nobody knows who he is. Edmond remembers meeting the prince, but as he tries to explain how they met, he gets his own details mixed up, as if they've first met several times. Upon examination, the prince and his friends discover that Edmond is partially a mana projection, having been merged with other versions of himself across other realities, and has access to memories of many versions of himself of events that never happened for him. Edmond decides to stay at the Halidom so that his condition can continue to be monitored, and in return offers information that he discovers in his many travels across multiple realities. Welcome back to Dragalia Lost to Let's Design, where today's unit is Edmond, the Reality-Torn Traveler, a 5-star Shadow Blade attack type unit. Edmond's first skill is Etheric Bind, an attack that costs 4000 SP. Etheric Bind deals 1800% damage to the target and 2100% to poisoned foes. However, Etheric Bind lacks an iframe period, instead bracing Edmond for 1.5 seconds, granting him knockback immunity, and the percent total of his HP he loses during the bracing period will amplify the damage of the skill. If he loses between 30 and 49% of his HP, the skill will deal double damage. If he loses between 50 and 89% of his HP, the skill will deal triple damage. And if he loses 90% or more of his HP and lives, Etheric Bind will deal 4 times damage. This multiplier only kicks in if he loses HP, so life shields will prevent the multiplier. Etheric Bind is shareable for 7 tomes at a cost of 10,000 SP. Edmond's second skill is Multiverse Connection, costing 6,000 SP. Multiverse Connection cleanses the user of debuffs and does one of the following for 15 seconds. Increases the user's critical rate by 20%, increases the user's attack rate by 20%, or increases the user's skill damage by 20%. Edmond's co-ability is the typical Blade co-ability of Strength plus 10%, and his chain co-ability is Shadow HP below 60 equals HP regen. Edmond's first ability is Ethereal Existence, which allows him to survive a single hit that would otherwise kill him with 1 HP. This ability fails if the attack deals more than double his maximum HP or is otherwise guaranteed death. Edmond's resistance is Paralysis Resistance plus 100%, and his third ability is Critical Hit equals Healing, where each critical hit Edmond lands will heal him for 5% of the damage inflicted. The idea behind Edmond's kit was taking reflection units like Lee, Fjorm, and Cassandra and fixing the reflection. Lee, for instance, deals 11 times the damage he takes back to the enemy, but if 4000 health is currently a generously sized maximum HP, then taking near that would deal just under 44,000 damage to the enemy, which is underwhelming when normal attacks from many other units deal upwards of 100,000 at least. Edmond aims to change this to a percent-based modifier instead of looking at the numbers themselves, as using numerical HP for damage is rather limiting. Edmond's first skill is designed to deal decent damage on its own, but more damage if he chooses to reflect an incoming attack. I listed thresholds for integer modifiers, but it could also be linear from 0% of his health loss to 99% of his health loss, going from no multiplier to 4 times. This is where Edmond's abilities come in. Ethereal Existence allows him to survive 1 hit that would otherwise kill him, which allows for 2 useful strategies. First, if he's taking a big hit, it increases the odds of surviving and getting a sizable reflection. And second, if he's taking a small hit at lower HP, it would still allow him to pull it off. It will also reduce the headache of other players trying and failing to use reflection and getting themselves killed. The ability has drawbacks though. For starters, it's single use and can be wasted or otherwise ignored if the player gets comboed in a multi-hit attack. If used properly, the player can guarantee a single massive hit, then continue to do moderate damage for the rest of the fight. Edmond would probably be amazing for speed comps. As a unit who converts HP into damage, Edmond really needs tight control over his HP, and as such, Edmond's third ability is Critical Hit equals Heal, which isn't meant to substitute a healer entirely, but supplement it, as his inherent crit rate is low and blades attack slowly by default. His second skill complements this by increasing his crit rate or attack rate to increase the odds of a crit in a specific time frame. Skill damage just boosts him as an attack unit. For the chain co-ability, I considered several options. Yukata Cassandra has Taking Damage equals Strength, Summer Norwin has 10 hits equals HP regen, and I also considered HP below 40% equals light res. I decided to make it non-offense oriented so as to keep some semblance of balance in his kit. I didn't pick light res because that would reduce the damage potential of Edmond, and it can always be added with backliners and wormprints, and Summer Norwin's recovery potency sucks, so I landed on HP below 60 equals HP regen. Finally, he has paralysis res because getting paralyzed would be a nuisance, removing his HP as opposed to blind res. But that's not all for today. After several weeks at the Halidom, Sanoa has made a breakthrough in researching Edmond's condition, and has begun helping him to learn to channel the powers and states of his many selves. Wielding a staff to help channel the energy of the multiverse, Edmond can now channel his ethereal life energy to protect his allies, and can more readily access the knowledge of his other selves. Soul Connect Edmond, the one in many, is a 5-star light staff and a healing type unit in the same way Grace is. Soul Connect Edmond's first skill is Etheric Barrier, costing 5,916 SP. It's identical to Grace's skill 1, exchanging HP for life shield above 40% HP, or providing a defense buff below 40% HP. Soul Connect Edmond's second skill is Knowledge of Many, which costs 8,534 SP. Knowledge of Many increases the entire team's critical rate by 20% for 15 seconds. Knowledge of Many is also shareable for 6 tomes, costing 13,232 SP. Soul Connect Edmond's co-abilities also match those of Grace: Force Strike plus 20% and light HP below 40% equals shield. Soul Connect Edmond's first ability is one I also designed for Viren, being Dauntless Devastation, raising his critical rate by 15% every 15 seconds that pass without being knocked back. His resistance is 100% curse res, and finally, he keeps his kit's signature critical hit equals healing for 5% of the damage a critical inflicts. It's probably obvious that Soul Connect Edmond has a lot in common with Grace, and that's intentional. Grace practically defines auto comps right now, and I think instead of reeling away from this one type of overpowered unit, the dev should double down and add another to double our odds of pulling a life shield unit. Soul Connect Edmond differs from Grace, however, in that he's more offense focused and lacks Dispel. Instead of healing double buff and defense buffs for the team, Soul Connect Edmond heals once again through critical hits, where his skill 2 and abilities work. Grace can still heal relatively easily without a life shield because she just needs defense buffs, but Soul Connect Edmond practically requires a life shield for self-healing, as life shields cancel knockback, which enables him 45% critical rate from the Dauntless Devastation. His one-use chain co-ability shield might aid with that too. As such, he'll be less reliable than Grace, at a trade-off of providing the team with more critical rate, although Grace can trigger double buffs. Soul Connect Edmond can also supplement his own HP regen with shared skills like a standard heal, or even Galaluka's might be very useful for him in particular. The resistance between Curse Res and Poison is tricky, but I ultimately went with Curse Res as many poisons can be healed off, while Curse shuts down everything. Also, Poison Res is my optimized button's favorite 4-star Wyrmprint selection. Another thing I considered for his skill 2 was instead basically using Estelle's skill 2, a generic regen skill, but I ultimately decided that would be a bit too powerful for a unit that just needs HP to create life shields all the time, and decided to try and make it more balanced by requiring critical hits instead. Let me know what you think of Edmond and his Soul Connect ult in the comments below, and I'll see you guys next time.